So I think actually we should start out by saying, like, I'm Sarah, until people are familiar with our voices.
That's probably a great idea.
Hey, so glad you guys could be here. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Emily.
I guess we're just going to go over kind of how we met, because that's a funny story.
It's a funny story.
And right now, I'm actually currently in Asheville, North Carolina. And we went to the place where we met last night. Because I was like, oh, I need to see this place.
Yeah, and I still live in Asheville, and Sarah's in LA, right?
Yeah.
And so you're visiting, and we were...
So MG Roads? No. Why do I keep saying that?
I think you must like that place.
I think that it used to be called, like, what is it called?
It's a Battery Park Book Exchange.
Really?
Yeah.
I think in my mind it was called the MG Roads Champagne Bar.
No,
I think I'm combining
combining two
places. The only two times I've been there was last night and when I met you.
Oh, dang.
So I've never been there for any other purpose.
It's such a cool spot. It's like this library maze champagne bar, and there's like a giant moose head in the middle of it.
What?
Did you miss the moose head?
Yeah, I didn't see.
I forgot what his name was.
I've never seen the moose.
I used to work there. I used to put my kids to bed, and I would go work there late at night, and I'd work till midnight.
Wait, what? Doing what?
That was back when I was no. What was I doing? I was doing it was actually some sort of copyright stuff for a pastor. Actually, I was writing his blog for a while.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
I know.
You were blogging for a pastor out of the champagne bar
at midnight in Asheville.
When was this? When did this happen?
I saw Owen Wilson there the one time.
Oh, really?
He gave me googly eyes, and I was like,
what?
Get out of here, Owen.
Get out
of here with your face.
Wait, that is so wild. I didn't know that.
It was a very small season of my life, I guess I don't really think about.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's so wild.
So this place, so we were there, we were wandering around downtown all day yesterday, and we popped back in there, and we were talking about, oh my God, this is where we first hung out, you know?
Well, actually, our first hangout was kind of a date.
Right. We technically met each other on a dating site.
Yeah. And I really pursued you. I was I just remember seeing your profile and being this woman is magical. And I would like her to be in my life. And I was in a really difficult spot, just
there was
in my
a
life.
ton going on that summer.
I was not really.
What summer was that?
In a good place. I don't know, actually. I would have to look. But I just remember we went on this date and we just immediately launched into my childhood.
That sounds like me.
And I just was talking about all the difficulties in my life and my strained relationship with my mom at the time. And and then I remember leaving and being oh my God, that poor woman. I just I felt it was weird because I felt like I had experienced some sort of release, and I felt a little bit of guilt and oh my gosh. But also you gave off just such a you were in it.
Oh yeah.
And you were there for it.
I was that's all I want to talk about is tell me about real shit. I don't fucking care what you do for work. Tell me about your pain and your joy.
I know. And now it's really funny to me because you'll I'll introduce you to a new friend. And then instantly I'll walk away for 3 seconds and bring back drinks for them both. And then she's just that sounds extremely traumatic. And I'm how the fuck did you get there in 3 seconds?
I know. I don't know. It's what's interesting to me. And I think a lot of people want to talk about it.
They do.
And they just don't ever have an outlet for it, especially, and then it's something especially unique when it's somebody you don't really know. And then you're not really trying to protect an existing relationship. And you're just kind of this crazy chick just wants to hear heavy, deep, vulnerable stuff. I love it. I remember we had some kind of a mutual friend.
Did we? Who?
Another Sarah.
Oh, another Sarah. Yeah.
I don't have a ton of really clear memories. I think I have a bad memory just in general.
Well, it's weird. I have some memories that are very vivid. And then I have entire portions of my life it's where I'm
that's
out. It's cloudy and more I remember just my state of mind more so
than details and stuff.
Yeah, recently my little sister was remember when we went to University of Colorado Boulder to visit the college campus, and we went to this Frozen Dead Guy Day, and immediately all the emotions came back. And I was wow, I was so miserable at that point in my life.
Whoa.
I was so sad and so confused. that's all I remember.
Yeah.
But I had like totally forgotten that. Anyway, sorry. So mutual friend.
Yeah. Who had like, and I can't really remember if it was like she brought me to your attention or made sure like you gotta like connect with this girl. It was just some kind of like,
she's wonderful.
Yeah. And it was just like some kind of, she was like networking us. And then, but I remember that summer was really bananas. I know you said you were trying to pursue me, but I also felt like I was pursuing you.
Oh, really?
I felt
how I feel about that summer was like, for sure, I was like trying to be your friend. I was like, this girl, I would love to be her friend.
I know. And then it was so fun when we finally got together. And we were both, for me, that was like early on when I was like kind of exploring my queerness, you know, in that whole time in my life. And I felt like a very kindred spirit in you in regards to the queerness, you know, it was like, it was awesome.
Yeah. I had a phase where the only time I like dated women was when I would leave the country and be like traveling abroad.
Wow.
And so I was trying to bring that into my life, like in the US. Because I don't know, it felt like safer. I was just, because I traveled a lot, so it was easy.
And you could peace out.
I could be like, bye, I'm a different person over here.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
And so, yeah, so that was the other thing, is it was something that I was trying to, I don't know, it was like a new thing, but I was also in a relationship.
Right.
With a man. It was just such a weird time. It was such a weird time trying to figure out like who I was, how I wanted life to look. I was trying to like hide from my family. Right. Because I was going through just this giant transformation of really trying to figure out who I was outside of like what I was constantly being told I was. Because my family is very much, this is how you are. This is how you are.
I know
like,
you.
Just, I know you. Like, you are this way and you're not this way. And it just was like, I don't know. At that point in time, I was really, truly like, I have to like quiet those voices.
Right.
So I was like pulling back from my family for a little bit.
Right.
And then just trying to figure out who the fuck I was.
Right.
And you're such an important part of that. And I feel like, I mean, because we didn't like really date after that. We immediately were like, well, we're friends.
Well, we're best friends now. Okay. It was so funny. It's true.
It just launched into this like deep friendship of like something I had never experienced before, like pretty quickly.
Yeah, it did.
And then we had our first podcast, which was called The Sex Talk.
Right. Well, hang on before we get to the sex talk, because I just want to paint the picture of where I was in my life, right?
Yeah,
too.
Do that, definitely.
And then we'll get to the sex talk, which is awesome. But like, so where I was in my life, I think at that time, my kids were really young. Like they were, I don't know, maybe 2 and 4, maybe even younger. No, probably that. And I had kind of, after having kids, I had kind of had this whole like rediscovering of myself or like, or something like that. I was going through my own like transformational thing. And a big part of that was like getting honest about my sexual identity kind of stuff and like things I was really curious about exploring and discovering about myself, and really just this whole coming into myself as like an actual like woman, maybe. I don't know. There was something about birthing my children that made me feel like a fucking badass, you know? And I was just like, I don't know. It was a really brave time for me, but also really scary for me, especially like given my very fundamental evangelical Christian upbringing and like admitting to myself that I am not straight, and all of that was like really challenging. And I was grateful for my partner holding space for me during that time to do that, which was really, I think, unique. Yeah, very huge. So then like connecting with you and having like a friend who
we were kind of going through similar like,
stuff,
exploration, like in this area, basically.
And it was very kind of, I feel like it was pretty focused on like our sexuality, like hence the name of our podcast.
Well, that was the part that have felt it wasn't being explored.
It was repressed.
It was really repressed. I had so much guilt and shame around it. Yes. I mean, we've talked about it since, like, I'm like, sometimes I have days where I'm like, how much of like the partners I've chosen were just out of it being like easier. Right. Because, you know, being bisexual, you're like, well, it's much less complicated to like
just go with it.
Yeah. And so for me at that point in time, that was like the question I was asking myself. I'm like, what am I actually choosing in my life? Because it's the easier of like the two paths.
Yeah.
And then I was like disappointed in myself because I was like, you're stronger than that. Like you can do more. You can push back on things But then I was faced with the very real realization that there was so much guilt and shame around that.
Yes.
And
I feel like that was like a big theme that honestly, I feel like that was a big theme we were just hashing through by like putting it all out there in a podcast. We were just like exploring that whole idea of like accepting our own sexuality and our queerness and our like making it feel like it's okay to like have a sex drive as a woman, you know?
Even that, just that.
Just
like,
just wanting sex.
Just like being okay with that.
Being a sexual being. I know. And I remember during that time, I was really like cracking open into this kind of what you were saying, how like your family kind of put you in this box of who they knew you to be and wanted you to stay there. Obviously that would be comfortable for them. And how you were like, I'm so much more than that, you know? And I feel like I was doing a version of that where I was feeling like I had been in like a straight monogamous like relationship for a long time. And I was just like very aware that there was a lot more outside of that container, as beautiful as that can be and as healthy as it can be for some people. Like, I just felt like there was like a lot more of me to discover. And it was really, really important for me to like kind of discover myself via my sexual identity and like experimenting with that. And so leading into, I mean, and I think we just hit it off and we were like, we need a podcast.
Yeah. And so we use the podcast kind of as like, honestly, like how I see this podcast too. Like, I think it's just such a wonderful and important tool for self-discovery and exploration and being intentional about like sitting down and like having conversations where you kind of sort through things that maybe you've been thinking about by yourself. And so that's what the sex talk was. Like we had no idea that it would be like, we didn't think we really truly like never thought about the fact that people might listen.
It was just the fact of recording it and putting it out there that was like this big thing. And then we never like went to like, well, what if like people start listening to
Which
it?
is what happened. And we were like,
us the fuck out.
We were like, oh wait, this is like really intense.
And it wasn't just like a dozen people.
It was like thousands of
people were listening to this podcast.
Like pretty quickly. Like within a few months.
Yeah.
I mean, it was called the Sex Talk.
Right.
It was like years ago. So it was a little bit before the like podcast.
Our topics, boom. Right. Our topics were like blowjobs.
Yeah.
And like just things that we were like, let's normalize this stuff.
Yeah. Let's like talk about it. And so we pulled the plug on that because we were like, oh, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
Also, that's like, this has always been my problem is there's never really been anything in my life that I've wanted to be like known for. Like I've never wanted to be that copywriter chick. Like that was like one of my biggest fears about going down the path. Like I don't want to just talk about copywriting. Like I love copywriting and I can't help it. Like our conversations will probably circle back to it because I do like love it so much. And I love like sexuality and how much insight you can gain about yourself on that front and the way that it can help you grow and become a better person if you're, you know, pushing back against all the like crazy ass conditioning and self-limiting beliefs that so many of us have experienced on that front. But it's like, even with the sex talk, I was like, I don't want to be that sex talk girl, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I remember like, I felt so vulnerable. Like everything we were saying, it was really just like, I'd never hardly even like spoken about these things out loud to anybody, let alone like recording them in a podcast.
Like thousands of people. Well, the craziest thing for me was my little sister at one point was like, your podcast is so amazing. And she was not somebody I considered to be, I don't know, just even like in like our promiscuous ages, she was not as like doing as much exploring as I was.
Sure.
And she was like, I listened to your podcast with like 3 other girlfriends one night when we were having like a girls' night. And we were just, you didn't know the story?
I knew that. I mean, maybe you told me and I forgot. But.
And she was like, and it was awesome. We were just like, oh my God. Like, it was like cracking up with you guys. And like, it was so interesting to hear. And it just made us all feel better about our own experiences.
Yes.
And it was like really wonderful. And I was just like, what?
No.
My sister, like I barely could like take in and receive all of that because I was just like, my little sister heard it. Oh my God.
That is really intense. I feel like I remember that your sister like knew about it. And then for me, because I was still very much in that time of my life, like not out at all about anything. Like I was still very much like a good Christian girl. And I had this like alter ego. I was going on dates with cute girls. Honestly, like looking back at that time of my life, it was so painful to be like
quiet.
Yeah.
And feel like...
It was really painful
to feel like
for
you
me.
had something that had to be
and that I
hidden.
wouldn't be accepted or loved for that. Like, and...
Well, that was why this whole time came about for me, because I was in a like 7-8 year relationship that was like a very traditional relationship, and like this part of me was not acceptable. It was shamed within that relationship. I mean, I was constantly told that it was like just for attention.
Whoa.
And that it wasn't real.
Wow.
And one of the reasons I think I explored that when I would like travel was I could keep it like secret and hidden and protected.
You could have this whole like
and also I had a whole like period where I was so afraid of being seen as doing any of it for attention.
Whoa.
Because that was like the biggest thing that was used to like shame me.
Really fucked up.
That I don't know, I just like I hid it so hard because I was like, this isn't for attention, this is like truly for me.
Yeah,
like that was something
you had to like prove that to yourself. Almost because you're being gaslit.
Yeah, and so so for me, I was kind of exploring, one of the main reasons I was so miserable in that relationship was because all of this was like used. This part of me wasn't not only like not accepted, it was like weaponized against me. You know what I mean? And it was so painful and I was so miserable.
Yeah.
So this became a whole process of like not only exploring like what it actually meant to me, but also it was just like so important for me to make it like a secure part of my identity so that when I did choose a partner, it wasn't something that I was trying to hide from them.
Yeah.
Like they had to be somebody who was like capable of seeing this in me and knowing about it and like loving me
and
for
accepting it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Not even just accepting it, like loving that part of me, like so much more.
Wow.
Which is like, I mean, quite honestly, it's like one of the reasons I like moved to LA because I just needed to be in a more like diverse and accepting culture. And my partner now, like he grew up in LA and just so much of what I've experienced around the like shame, and he like doesn't even understand because he grew up in a world
really progressive.
Well, it was like, so progressive and accepting of this where he's like, that's not even like that crazy, Sarah. Like you're in like you think girls are pretty? Like
right.
Like okay.
You're like, well, growing up in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
like having that, like.
And so for him, he's just constantly like, I mean, okay, like this is like, he grew up in a world where like there were gay people and there were gay people in his life, and it wasn't
just
like
normalized because it is normal.
I know. And I don't know. It was so, I don't know. That was just really important for me. It's like why one of the main reasons I moved to LA was for that like level of acceptance, to experience that in my life. And entrepreneurship. Yeah. And for the entrepreneurs that are especially on the west side of LA, which is just like insane and amazing to me. Like so many inspiring people over there. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's been a really crazy and important part of this story. And I feel like you were like just such an important part of that process for me. Like, I don't know.
I feel
what
like
I would have done.
I know. Same. I feel like we gave each other this like empathy, like around like, oh, I'm not the only, like, I'm not a freak. Like, I'm not the only one that's like really hashing this shit out.
I mean, I just like, I don't know. I just feel like people looking at us would not like think, they would not be like, oh, you're like a queer pansexual like, human.
Sure.
They would be like, you're just another one of these.
Straight mom. With like questionably like large amount of tattoos.
Yeah.
Like, what's your deal?
In Asheville, it like fits right in. Yeah. And it's also funny to think back on both of us during that time. Like the amount of growth we've experienced since we first met is just tremendous. Like even like the things we would talk about on our little podcast. Like we're like,
and they felt so big.
They felt so big and scary. And like we were on like just on the frontier. Just discovering some shit.
We really were. And it was like, I just love that. Like, I look back at that version, like that version of us, and have just so much affection and fondness for like how brave we were being.
Yeah.
Like we were being so brave. And even like, I like majorly got like cold feet on the whole podcast thing because I had some people in my like real like straight church life like somehow like find out about that stuff in a roundabout way, and it like scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, and she like you like called me one day and you're like, you have to pull everything off the internet. To pull it. And I of course was like, without a doubt, like no questions asked, like of course, absolutely. But there was a part of me I was like, God, Emily,
I know.
So much work.
I know.
So much work. So there was part of me that was like, that was pissed, but not at you. Just like, why is this the world we live in?
Right.
I actually was mad that you felt like
that.
And
I think I was mad at that too, that I felt like I had to remove this thing that we worked so hard on.
To make other people feel comfortable. That's such bullshit.
It's really fucked up.
It really is. At the end of the day, like, it was their discomfort, their own stories, their perceptions, their beliefs.
Yeah.
And it made you feel like you had to change who you were.
And it really was like...
And that sucks.
And really for me, it was... I really did feel like I had to keep all that under wraps for my partner's family. Because they were the ones that I felt potentially wouldn't.
Right.
Or would be upset about it. And I didn't want to cause any... I didn't want to rock the boat or cause any backlash to come back on my partner.
That makes sense.
And I didn't like, so I was trying to like protect that whole situation. I didn't really care if like my family knew, but I don't live with my family. They're like in a different state. And so it was like, there was like a lot of dynamics to that fear that included like my partner's comfort, you know?
Yeah, no, and that makes sense.
Yeah. Even doing this podcast right now, like, and talking like just so candidly about that whole time is really, I'm even feeling it now, how like liberating and healing that is, just to kind of like put all the things out there and like where we kind of started.
And something that's interesting is it doesn't feel as important as it once did.
No, it feels a lot smaller.
Because it feels crazy. Like, it still feels important, but it doesn't feel as like wildly like huge. I get that. It doesn't carry the same weight in my life that it once did, because I feel like I've integrated it, and it's now who I am, and the people in my immediate circle and in my life and the people I engage with on like I don't know, just like day to day, they just know it about me, and it's accepted, and it's like, that's Sarah.
And honestly, like,
and that's who I surround myself with now, is people who are more in that world, who are at the very, very least accepting of that world. Like, it's just... Yeah. So it's integrated. And once it's integrated, it's not. Yeah.
It doesn't seem as like crazy and wild. There's like almost this like level of, I know for me, I definitely experienced like, I didn't feel like other people could accept me because there was a part of me that I wasn't even accepting. Like, I was trying to. Right. Right. And that was like an exercise in looking at this part of me that I was excited about, but had to figure out how to integrate and accept based on like everything I knew growing up and like all the stuff put in my head about what is right and wrong. And it's funny because it's almost like the more we've become accepting of ourselves, the more our community and the people we surround, like, it reflects that. Yeah. Right? To a place of ease. We're just easy. And it's not actually even like a thing, because it's like so integrated in ourselves, and therefore automatically integrated into the communities we're creating.
Yeah.
Right?
And the people you choose and the people you attract and the situations you put yourself in and end up in, and the people you spend time with. And it just feels so much more comfortable to like go through your day feeling accepted. And one thing that I kind of have loved that we've always done, because I don't know what it is about us, because not everybody's doing this, I feel like. But for us, part of exploring things and learning and being better people, and literally should be the name of our podcast, is like doing it with other people. Like, that's why we're choosing to even put this out into the world. Because in my experience, the more you do that, and not that doesn't mean anyone has to be comfortable like putting themselves out on social media and have a fucking podcast, but the more you put your like true self out into the world, the more you like just hear back from people like, yeah, me too. Yeah. That has been my experience, even from the entrepreneur standpoint, you know, talking about nothing to do with anything sexual at all, but talking about like copywriting and entrepreneurship and being miserable at your job and wanting more for yourself and more for your family, and just like not wanting to be miserable, like giving your life away to a corporation. Like, when I started talking about that, you get like the feedback, you attract the people who resonate with that story and are like, yeah, me too. I really would like to do something different. Yeah. And then it just makes you, I don't know, it's so reassuring, honestly. It really, to be like, we're all just trying to figure it out. We're just trying to be like decent humans. And
I feel like when we like keep that stuff buried down, like our quote unquote messiness, like our confusion or whatever you would like to name it about whatever area of your life, that you're like, kind of aware that it needs to be like addressed and looked at, and maybe you've spent your whole life like doing like mental and emotional gymnastics to get around like actually addressing it, and you keep it buried down and it's like coming out in like weird ways. And it's like when I've gotten to the place where I'm like, I need to look at this, and I feel brave enough to take a look. And then when you are able to like go the step farther of like actually sharing and being vulnerable with the people you're around, then that happens. Like you start realizing you're not alone. This isn't actually as big or as scary, or even as like, it's not even an isolated incident. Like this happens to people, and people have overcome, and people have healed, and people have like become better and grown and like learned from this. It starts with this like internal honesty, right?
Yeah.
And acknowledging that you actually deserve and are worth having like a whole integrated human experience.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're all trying to get to, I think, like consciously or subconsciously. And that I think the thing is like when we keep things in the shadows like that, whether it's your sexual identity or your unhappiness in your relationship or your defeat in your career or whatever it is, like fill in the blank, like when you keep that stuff in the shadows, it feels like this big monster, right?
Yeah.
It feels like terrifying. You don't know how big this thing is. You're afraid to shine the light on it because you're afraid if you do, you realize it's something so big that it's actually going to like overtake you and you're not going to survive it. Like really on like our very like base, like brain, like it's like this fight or flight thing. Like I can't do that. But it's like, dear people listening to this podcast, I promise you, when you shine that light on, you realize, oh, it's like a 6-year-old version of me who's really sad about something or feels really repressed or confused or whatever. And you actually, it turns from this big monster into someone that you really, really recognize and remember and have actually so much empathy for. And you realize this version of you that you think is so scary, that is just really sad or really angry or really hurt or upset or whatever, is just wanting your acknowledgement and love from you.
It's true.
Right?
And that's the thing that I've learned in working with other people and like kind of coaching people through like entrepreneurship is like, we all have these like looming fears, and they're all different for everyone, but sometimes I think there are a lot of themes, but everyone has like a looming fears at some given point. Like they change and shift and whatever. And sometimes they're bigger than others. Sometimes they're not very big. But the thing is, the main thing is like looking at it. Yeah. Like you have to like drag it into the light. Yeah. And as soon as you do, it's always more manageable and easier to deal with and not as scary as it felt. It's like, when you keep it in the back of your mind, that's what's scary. That's what's so scary about it. Like you have to drag it out into the light. Yeah. And anytime I've done that or encouraged someone else to do that, they're like, that wasn't as scary as it, like I allowed it to be. Yeah. One of the things I like definitely do myself and also teach is like using affirmations to directly combat the repetitive subconscious stories we've been telling ourselves, because it's so consistent and constantly happening and subconscious and repetitive that like, in all of the like research I've done on like neuroscience and psychology, like the best thing that works for me and I've seen work for so many people is like affirmations that directly like contrast those beliefs and saying them on repeat. And you don't have to believe them when you start saying them. Like that is not the point. The point is like this affirmation represents something I would like to believe and be in the future. I don't believe it right now, but I'm going to say it to myself every day to just try and quiet the like opposing voice just like slightly. And one of the affirmations that was really important for me and has been, and I get some of the most feedback on, is that my problems aren't unique and that the solutions I'm looking for are always out there. I just have to be open and willing to receive them. Whoa, yeah. And it's interesting because that is really reassuring for me that my problems aren't unique, that there are a lot of, truly we have such an access to human story and like the variety of the human experience through the internet now that we didn't before. And so you really, truly, like, I am willing to bet that there are very few problems that any human has experienced that another human hasn't. Yeah. And that you can't find some version of that story of a triumph or something. Yeah. And the thing that's interesting about the pushback I get on this is that there's something I've noticed is that there's like a resistance to the idea of the uniqueness. Like people are like, wait, I'm not special.
Oh, hello, all my Enneagram 4s out there.
Yeah, and that's like, remember when I did the poll of my Write Your Way to Freedom student group, it was like all Enneagram 4s, which is what you are.
Which is why you got the pushback on that. Because they're all like, wait a minute, I am so unique. It's actually my whole identity is individuality. Don't tell me that other people know what I'm about. I've experienced that.
And I'm and so the uniqueness of it all is just like funny to me how people get hung up on that bit. They're like, no, my problems are unique. I'm special.
I'm a special person.
I am like, my misery is special.
It sets me apart.
Yeah.
Nobody's like me.
Nobody's experienced
It's so funny because there's a distinction there. It's like, it's okay. Yeah, you could be a really triggery, like melancholy Enneagram 4, like all day long. I do that. Or you can really realize the truth and the gift in that is that other people have gone before you. It's not about like, are you special or not? Of course you're fucking special. Of course you're special, Enneagram 4s, but, and all the rest. But it's more about like, if that person can especially my Enneagram 4s. But it's like, if that person can overcome what they overcame and do what they did and find their joy or whatever, I can too.
Yeah.
It gives you like almost this sense of belief that it's possible. It's not, don't get hung up on like your story's unique. Of course, like, overall, like there's
nothing's been assembled in quite the same way.
Sure.
But like when you pull out one
there's
problem,
nothing new. And the thing is it's like, that's nothing to fight over. That's like fighting against the sun shining. Like that's just facts. But when you can look at that from a place of like encouragement and like finding just that like I can do like, and there's something about seeing somebody who's very similar to you overcoming a challenge that you are currently experiencing that tells like your subconscious, like, I can do it too. Like and it's really important. That's why it's really important to surround yourself by people who are like growing and doing the shit.
Thing. Yeah. And but it is important to make sure that you are telling yourself that because this has been done, I can do it too. Because the other story is, well, they're special and unique. And therefore, I like won't be able to achieve what they've achieved.
And then that's a self-worth issue that you gotta go down.
So that's like another layer that I sometimes see. But the whole like, it's just so funny to me, the whole idea of like the uniqueness of our like suffering. And I'm like, no,
that's not it. I know. That's so funny. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, there is a huge sense of self-worth in that. I deserve to heal or integrate or be whole. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And honestly, like you'll get to that, like the more work you do on yourself or bringing this stuff out into the light, like you'll get there. But there is, I think, a stage in the beginning where you're kind of like, I'm never going to be happy, or I don't deserve that. Or like they're special over there. This person I see on Instagram and they get to be happy because they're special and I'm not deserving of that. Like on some subconscious level, that's another part that needs to be brought out into the light, right?
Well, for me, what ended up ultimately like happening and what like is, I feel like a theme in my book actually is that for me, I had to act on behalf of future Sarah. Because my self-worth at like some points, like when I think of like my darkest like points in my life, my self-worth was so fucking low and so like in the trash that I had to just act on behalf of like the idea of me in the future because I couldn't wait for my self-worth. I got to a point where I was like, I cannot wait until I like feel ready to like do the thing that's going to make me a better human. I just have to like start taking like one small thing each day that like makes me proud of like being here on this earth. Cause I don't know, like my depression has been like, I've just been in some dark places, but yeah, it was about like doing things and doing the work, like baby step by baby step and just like having faith that if I just kept showing up and doing like small things that eventually it would compound on each other. And eventually, you know, I would be a happier, healthier person.
And how did that work out for you,
fucking
Sarah?
Great.
Yeah.
It's like one of the most important things I want to like tell other people is that for me, it was such a mistake for so many years to like wait to do the thing, whatever it is, start your business. For me, it was like starting my business. It was like going out on my own. It was taking a chance on myself. It was betting on myself. All of that, I was like waiting till I felt better.
Right.
And I just did it while I was like in the actual like trash can.
Right.
I was like, I have to do this while I feel like this, because it's, to me, I was like, this is the only way out.
This piece of wisdom that you like really truly embody in your whole self. And like, this has been such a big thing I've learned from you. And I know so many people have learned from you, because it's like this thing you know to be true. You just know it to be true. And you're like, I promise you, do this like one little thing and then do one little thing tomorrow. And then having that, I don't feel like I really knew of that entire like, because I definitely like subscribe to the whole belief of like, when I'm ready or when I feel like healthier, happier, or more confident or whatever, then I'll do that. And you have always been a voice in my life of like,
that's not going to happen.
I mean, this is the whole like white robe thing that you're like, I know, right? Like you imagine yourself in some beautiful white linen robe, like blissed out and transcendent, but that's like not real life, Emily. Come back down from Enneagram 4. Cloud 9.
And I think the key is that you actually find that feeling, like you find like, like, cause where I am in my life today, like I just like, I like think back on like sad Sarah and like when she was like in her deep, darkest place. And I wish I could just like hug her. I'm like getting teary eyed, cause I'm like, most of my life, I could have never imagined how good it would be right now.
Wow.
Like I always thought that it would always be kind of mediocre. I always thought that maybe I'd have moments of like happiness. I never thought that I would truly like be in a place where I don't consider myself anxious or depressed. Like I like today, Sarah is like so happy and has such rich relationships and is like just more confident and sure of herself. And I just didn't think that that was like ever going to be possible for me. Like I just didn't. And so I'm just a big, big believer that like all of that stuff comes from just like continuing to show up for yourself, even when you just don't even know that that's like a real thing for you. Like the answer is all in the small stuff that you do in your every day. And slowly, like, bringing all your behaviors in alignment with your values. Like, just tiny, tiny stuff. Like, the way you
micro
eat.
adjustments.
The way you eat. If you shower that day. If you, like, put on makeup. Like, that might not be your thing. But for me, like, putting on makeup and putting on, like, clothing that, like, makes me feel good and isn't just sweatpants. Like, that's, like, makes me feel so much better.
Yeah.
And so it's all that little stuff. And it's also, like, along the same lines why I think it's such a mistake that people are like waiting for their passions. Yeah. Because I don't think that for some people, there's like the people who like know what they're doing with their life and that happens at a young age. And I've always been like, what the fuck? Like, where did you find that? And how? And like, so it's always confused me because I've always been so interested in so many things. And so I think the idea of like waiting for your passion or knowing your passion is so damaging to so many people, because again, it goes into that like whole idea of waiting until you feel right to like take that next step forward. And in my experience, the passion, the energy, the drive, the excitement, like all of that comes after the fact. Like you actually take the next step forward, even though you are not sure if it's the right one. And part of me thinks like, this is where you've influenced my life, because I probably wouldn't have said this. Like the scientist in me would have been like, shut up, Sarah, a few years ago. But I really think it has a lot to do with like showing the universe you're like willing to take that next right step and that you don't know what it is, but you're willing to work and you're willing to show up for yourself, even if it's like, you don't really believe that you deserve it. Yeah. And like the more you do that, I just think the universe is like, okay, this is what we've been waiting for. I'm going to start handing things your way. Like, here's this, here's that, here's that. And I'm just like, and it's just all these like blessings come into your life when you are maybe acting on behalf of the best way that like the thing for me is future Sarah. Yeah. I'm like, what would future Sarah do? Like, how would future Sarah show up? Yeah. Because when you're not waiting to feel like good about yourself, for some people is like, it's just not an option.
Yeah. I love that so much. I also love like future Sarah. I tend to see like, I picture like the most realized version of myself, but that's almost like, I almost like the future version of myself better, because it's making it like, this is like inevitable. Like this is where I'm going. It's happening. And like,
and you're building it right now with your actions, like even everything you're
things.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I feel you've taught me. It's like these small choices and actions that you make, like they're very easy to do and very easy not to do.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's Slight Edge for
sure.
Yeah.
Would you introduce you like, you got to read this book?
Because that's where it lies. It lies in the things that are easy, just as easy to do or just as not easy not to do. And like one of the examples he gives in that book is drinking a Coke.
Yeah.
You're like, this can of Coke, not a big deal by itself right here, right now. But it's like the more you make the choice to like drink that Coke or not drink that Coke, all those like micro decisions compound on each other. I mean, I would literally say to myself, because I know if I wake up in the morning and like there are dishes in the sink, like and stuff like that, I'll like spend my day chore-crastinating, which is like a fun word.
Wow, I've never heard of that. That's like my whole life.
Like, and then I won't get anything like meaningful or substantial done. And so I literally will say to myself, future Sarah will be so pleased if you just do these dishes right now, even though you don't want to do it. And it just like changed for me to say like future Sarah will be so appreciative if you do that. But then I also will joke that like that's a problem for future Sarah. Like that's sometimes hilarious. Too. Yeah. Like that's like the conversation I have where I'm like, Future Sarah
will deal with this.
I'm like, oh, that's a problem for future Sarah. I like don't have the capacity for that right now.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
It's like how I like motivate myself to do things that I don't, that are not my, like, who like, dishes aren't sexy. Nobody wants to do dishes.
Nobody wants that. No.
But like, if you do that for future Sarah, then she can actually like wake up in the morning and like focus on building her business and like engaging with her community, which is like really what she wants to spend her time doing. Like,
I really love this like whole mindset, and it's definitely something that I have certainly like struggled with in feeling like just real moody, you know, and like kind of almost, but it's so true. Like if you're feeling bad, you create a cycle of like pain and suffering because you do things then that make you feel more shitty, and like you eat shitty food, you like don't move your body, and then you feel, and it reflects like, it really reflects your inner, okay, so you were feeling shitty for like a week, and then it pans out, you create some weird habits, and then it pans out, and then it's like a month, and then it's like your entire like, it's colored your entire life with these weird, bad habits around these cycles of pain. And like to get out of, and we've all like done those, we've all coped, you know, we all have them. But it is like those small, like micro adjustments that does start telling the universe, like, so over here, I'm just attracting this, like, I'm attracting pain. Like when you like have a really bad fucking day and you're just in a foul mood and you always fucking stub your toe.
Yeah.
Somebody cuts you off, or you get the thing where like your fucking belt loop of your jeans gets stuck on the handle and you're like, God damn it. Like, this is just, my life is over. Like, I mean, that's like a funny example around like how I think we really kind of manifest and create things outside of us that reflect what's going on inside of us, right? Like we just like, it kind of all resonates and like sound waves coming out of us. And when we're starting to like put out there, right, that like, I'm worth it, or I want to make myself proud, or I want to feel good in my body, things start reflecting back to us again. And the more you do it, then you are starting to realize that those friendships that were keeping you in this like negative bubble of like judgment and criticism and lack of self-worth, those start falling away, and you start attracting people that are like doing stuff with their life and being compassionate and, you know, empathetic and stuff like that. And so, but it does come down to those small, easy to do, easy not to do things. Like, and even
the power of momentum in both directions is incredible, because like I'll have periods, like honestly, there's a part of me that like loves to just eat bread.
Oh, me too.
And like just like wear sweatpants and eat bread, and like you've seen it, and just like smash popcorn into my face. Eat just like like that cream cheese brioche. Oh, damn you.
This is how I've been getting through the last few months, though. I'm like,
but when I eat that stuff, I feel so bad. My body feels bad. I feel like hungover, even though I don't drink. And I'm just like, wow, it's so crazy how quickly you feel like shit, and then you want more shit food to like, because it's sometimes like a little bit of a relief, and it's just like this momentum. I mean, I have had days where like I'll eat like shit, I won't work out, or I won't move my body, because I actually kind of like don't like love like working out in the traditional sense. But like, and then I'm just, I don't know, I'll look at Ben and I'm like, wow, this feels so bad, but I can see how easy it would be to be like, I feel like shit, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, while I'm shoving that cream cheese brioche bread into my mouth, I'm like, this feels really delicious. Yeah. And like really good. But it's so easy to get on one side of that, like, that roller coaster, like that track, right? To let those decisions honestly motivate you on just like a physical level. Because if you feel like shit, it's like so hard to eat a banana or a carrot.
Right.
Well, maybe not a banana.
Not me. I like bananas. But I get what you're saying. Like, because it really does. And honestly, that really is something that I've struggled with. I think looking back, I'm seeing like how truly like depressed I've been the last couple of years. And like, that has been something I've been like aware of, but also just fucking underneath, like really. And it, not even like eating shitty, just like not eating. Like just like anybody who's listening to this is like resonating with that like kind of dark place. It's a map. Like that's all it is. It's like, it's really like a map showing you the places that you're hurting and where your body or your subconscious is kind of like saying, hey, something important's here. It's not a place to like judge yourself. Like that would just, that's the part that just pushes you deeper in that shit.
In that spot, then you just make it harder for yourself.
Honestly, for me, I think the way I start digging myself out of that hole is just acknowledging I'm in it. And just say, hi, I see you. Emily, you're really fucking sad right now. And you know what? That's okay. Like right now, you're not always going to be here. It makes sense that you're here. Like, cause honestly, like you shaming yourself for being in a hole just digs you deeper down in that hole.
Totally.
You know?
I mean, with the whole, like, in the whole drinking world, I have a big problem with the, like, overemphasis of, like, consecutive sobriety. Because what it creates, I think, in a lot of people is when they fuck up, like, well, fuck it. Like,
right.
And it's like, no, like that's like, it's creating an inherently like a sense of shame around like somebody who might relapse or like have a slip up or something like that. And I think it's such a mistake because really, truly, like what is so much more important is your ability to just like get back on the horse and to just like say rebound game. Like that is like your rebound game is so much more important, I think, than like how many days you can string together. I mean, to an extent, obviously there are examples like we could go into where like that is not the case. Course. But I just think it's like the overemphasis on really like making sure that you are like the first step is to not beat yourself up about for where you are in your life. Like that is really what it's about. And like no matter what decisions you've made or whatever, the faster you can stop beating yourself up about it, that's how you're gonna like start to climb out of any hole that you're in. And it's this whole idea of like, say to yourself what you wish, like people would say to you, or like what you wish your parents had said to you, or your partner would say to you. Like start fucking saying it to yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's where it starts. Like, cause like a lot of us can pretty clearly come to like an understanding of how we wish people treated us. Or not even like wish. Like sometimes I know that those people already exist in people's lives. So like I had a coaching call with a student recently and I could just tell on this call that her self-talk is like abysmal. Like I was just like, whoa. And so one of the like things I wanted her to do before our next call was I was like, I would like you to ask your sister, because I was like asking her the two most important like loving people in her life, because she's incredible. Like I can tell this woman is incredible and incredibly intelligent and driven and powerful, but her self-talk is just like, whoa. And so I actually asked her to get her husband and her sister, because she was saying things that they would say about her, like in the conversation, where I was like, oh, this is like, your perception of yourself is like really distorted. And so I was asking her, I was like, next time we meet, I would love for you to have a paragraph from your sister and your husband about them describing you. And I want to read them. And she was like, I was like, how uncomfortable does that make you? She was like, beyond uncomfortable. And I was like, well, I feel like that's probably really important then. Because it's like, I feel like also I could see in her myself at another point in my life where it was just like, just dragging yourself through the mud. And sometimes it's like, depending on where you are, I've actually said to Ben, I'm like, wouldn't it just be so much like more pleasant to receive what I'm saying about you, this like positive stuff, rather than like constantly rejecting it? Doesn't that just sound so much nicer? And he's like, yeah, let's do that. You know, so there's just like so many different ways to try and like, I guess, put a mirror up in front of people and get them to like actually look in the mirror instead of being like, no, it's gross. So there's this like whole idea that I've been chewing on for a while, is this idea of that whatever the pit you're in, this negative self-talk, all this stuff that we would say is quote unquote like
hard or we would have some negative like connotation to it. I think there's just been so many times in my life that I've seen such like genuine like fucking treasure come out of those hard places. And everybody says that. Like everybody says, oh, like, you know, there's so much growth that happens there. There's this whole other idea around that negative self-talk that this student of yours like experiences is serving a purpose for her.
That's true.
And I think if you can acknowledge, like if you're seeing these like habitual loops of things you're just doing over and over again that you know is fucked up. I can't stop drinking this Coke. Like I drink it every day, or I can't, or like whatever it is, this thing that you're like aware that you don't want it to be part of your life. You don't want to just eat cream cheese brioche every day and like lay in the fetal position, but you keep doing it. And it's like, what is going on here? You know, like and there's this future version of Emily who's like, fit as fuck and's got a great, like, you know, whatever is like social life. I don't know. But it's like, what is this place that I'm in or experience or these like, you know, heavy pit like things that people go through kind of serve a purpose. And to deny that or act like it's just self-sabotage for no reason and it's chaos, like doesn't actually give you the insight that is there and like right there in front of you. And when you start saying, okay, well, what purpose is this serving in my life? And not judging yourself, being really curious, really compassionate. Like it might be comfort. It might be just familiarity. It might be a trauma response, or it might be something that is happening because you need a sense of control. And once you can acknowledge the purpose it's serving, you have like an opportunity to be like, well, how can I have that need met in like a way that's not destructive to myself?
No, absolutely. I do think though that there have been points in my life where I didn't have that kind of clarity when I was in it.
Absolutely.
Like I had to get to like a next like level, even if I wasn't fully out,
right,
to even be able to like to do that. So sometimes for me it was just like
chaos.
Taking care of myself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The next day. Yeah.
And then like that is like a certain like level, I think, for some people.
Yeah.
But it's so important because it's so true. Like, because that's also when you start to see those things as like useful and you start to like, that's when you start to love the parts of yourself that are like, that are harder, or have been hard for you to love.
Yes, yes.
And that's when it like feels good because you're like, I don't know, I'm coming to appreciate my like angry protector that can come out because there have been, especially in my relationship with you, so many times where we've found stories where it actually like took care of me in times. But that's like always been the part of me that I've like had a hard time loving because I'm like, that's the part of me that also gets in trouble.
Yes. Yes. And this bit right here is one of the things I love most about our relationship because we are so different. And I think like the way we view even very similar things is like from really unique perspectives that we both like really value. You're like, I'm always like, whoa, what the fuck? I didn't even like see it that way. Or like that you're offering me all this insight that like is so like unique to like what my experience of reality is. And I don't know, it just makes me think about like how those parts of us, like what we were talking about earlier, like are in the shadow lurking and they're big and scary, right? It's like, I feel like even really early on with you, and I know you've done this with me, like I could see, like I was like, oh, she's got this like shadowy part of her that she really fucking like is trying to keep there. But I saw it for what it was. Like I think really early on, I loved it. I've always loved
you're like
this. Like
you're the first person in my life who's like loved that part of me.
And anytime you were like really like hateful towards that part, I was like, hey, I like that part. I mean, okay, you can think that. And there's this whole thing.
And I think, but part of it is I didn't realize how multifaceted it was. You know what I mean? Like I didn't realize like that part of me is the part of me that like really gets shit done.
Yes.
That part of me is the part of me that stands up for injustices and will like defend my friends and family like to the actual death.
Yes.
Like, so I didn't realize it's so hard without, like, this is the importance of friendships.
Right.
This is where you gain the insight into yourself that you cannot do on your own. Like, you cannot.
You just can't even see it on your own.
I never would have seen that on my own.
And then, like, you got to witness me seeing this part of you and actually really adoring it and you being like, what the fuck is happening? But it was almost like, I know that might seem scary to you right now, but I'm not scared of it.
Right. That's the other part is where you're like, okay, I'm going to like put up a bubble. I'm going to protect myself.
Okay, you can do your angry yelling, your guilty pleasure.
Passionate yelling. Passionate yelling. It's not just anger.
No, you're right. We got to change that narrative.
It's not totally like rage.
Yeah.
It's been so important for me. And I don't know. I just think that that is like one of the biggest gifts I've gotten like from our relationship. And also it kind of reminds me actually about something I found like in another like quest, but was like, oh, this is the same, another version of the same thing. And it was through Esther Perel and reading just like her thoughts, which she is just like wonderful.
Yeah.
But she says that about like romantic relationships, that almost always something that drives you crazy in a like romantic relationship or your romantic partner is usually the other side of some coin. Like, so something that they do that drives you crazy is also something that a part of them that is something that you really truly love and appreciate. Maybe it's like that you're struggling with how neurotic or like uptight somebody that you love can be, but like that's also the part of them that like gets shit done and shows up for you and is like gonna make sure that they like take care of you well, you know? So it's like when you start realizing that in yourself, it makes it easier to see it in other people. And then you start realizing that you can love like all of them. Yeah. You can love like the part that like also makes you want to fucking pull your hair out. Like, and it's just, I feel like with this knowledge, I am so much more patient with people. Yeah. Because you're like, oh man.
I see you.
I see you being messy. Yeah. I'm messy too. Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm super fucking messy. Like, we can be messy together. Yeah. Like, we're trying. We're just trying our best. Yeah. So, I don't know. This has been just one of the most important things for me in our friendship and in my way that I interact with people. Yeah. Something I wanted to bring up, it's like in the back of my mind, so I gotta offload it real quick, is that when you were talking about the like when you're having a frustrating day and you stub your toe and it's all just like piling up, like those are the days where you're like, today's just been one of those days. Like somebody cut me off, then I got rained on, then I like stubbed my toe, and then I like, and then you like create a story to justify your like attitude. Yeah. And for me, something that's worked really well, because I tend to like really resonate with like some tough love, like stuff on myself, is I would say to myself, because I was like, that's a behavior, that's like a way of approaching life that I don't really want to like be. Right. And I didn't really know how to like stop that, but I was definitely one of those people who was like, ugh. Like I would go to the airport like already mad, you know, because I was like, here we go, going to the airport. Flights are going to be delayed. People are going to be obnoxious. Like just like airports suck. And I just started telling myself like the size of the problem that keeps me down says so much about my character.
Whoa, you're like full of like these like wise. Like
you've never heard me say that one?
No, I fucking love it.
It was like the best little thing to pop into my mind when I started to get mad at like, for especially like getting mad at people who have like no control over the situation. For example, airports, flight is delayed and then people are screaming at that poor like gate person. Yeah. I think I've ever like screamed at anyone, but I've definitely like gotten really mad and frustrated and let it ruin my day. And telling myself like the size of the problem that keeps me down like says a lot about who I am, has like allowed so many more things to roll off my back. Cause I'm like, do I want to be the kind of person who's like furious over how long a line is? Right. Gross. Right. No. Yeah.
I really love that so
that's
much.
Like a big one that I like. And that has like changed my life. That simple like question. Yeah. Because I don't want to be annoyed by stuff like that. I like my yelling. It needs to like be cared for and like done in like a really like pleasurable way.
Yeah, totally.
Can't be just like dishing that all over the world.
Right. Yeah, there is something to be said though about giving. Okay, so like these parts of ourselves that maybe we have like we don't accept or we like loathe and we repress. Like, what if you found like an outlet for them that was not going to like hurt anybody or you, like to like express themselves and acknowledge themselves? That's like
what you've given me. Yeah. I feel like.
And then, but do you feel like after having that outlet, it is like.
Now it can go somewhere without being unleashed when I don't want it to
like
be
building up like a pressure cooker because it has an outlet. That's what I'm saying. And like even like, cause for me, it's more like, just fucking sadness. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, and I find that when I create, like I do art, I make like some really like moody piece of art, or I like write like a moody piece of music on the piano or something like that. It gives me that outlet too. You know what I mean?
To be that like sad,
just melancholy. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, 100%. Like multiple sacks of shit. Like I just would never show anybody that messy part of me except for maybe my partner. And then I would just like hide it away. I don't know, I guess going back to talking about our friendship, like that's like something you've done for me is like given me a space to be like messy and sad. And you've actually just
I love yours. Like I love
right. And it's part of, and like that's my
not
version.
When you're sad, but like it doesn't bother me or scare me.
Right.
I'm just like, it's okay.
That's like my version of like, like the part of me that I'm learning to love and I'm learning to recognize like the gifts that it brings to me and being able to be messy with you and still be loved and not have you think like I'm too sad, I'm too much, you've brought this whole like practical, like can do element into my life. I don't know why sometimes I just detach from like reality. The actual planet, like so quick. I can't figure out how to get the planet work or the printer to work, the planet to work either.
I think that was like the more truth. The truth.
I can't figure out how to get this planet to work. I'm peacing out. But like something small, like a printer or like something, and it's usually like really practical. Like I got lost somewhere, like, or can really like, I don't know why I can like just really click out into like, I'm just going to accept like the chaos of my reality and not actually like I can fix and change this. And it's a very childlike part of me who was like head in the clouds, like just like wandering through life. But everything felt very magical too until I like got myself in like trouble.
Well, that's when I love how we've been kind of working on and God, Ben is so good at this and bringing like humor into those situations. Cause it's like when you can just click over into like, this is a fucking joke.
A fucking cosmic joke.
Yeah, like the universe is like,
yeah,
you idiot. It can be so fun, and you're just like, you know what? Like, this is just so hilarious.
Right.
Look at me. I cannot figure out technology.
I know.
Good thing I have people in my life who can. I'm just going to call one of them.
Yes.
Help.
Help me. Yeah. And so it's like, I don't know. I think that is just kind of going back to what I love about our friendship and what has been so invaluable is how we have witnessed each other in these like parts of us that we ourselves, I think, like had hatred and self-loathing for and like didn't know how to express and just tried to hide it away. And then it would come out and just like, having somebody to witness that and just love and accept and actually not be fucking afraid. Like that's a huge thing because I think
not be afraid.
Because I think when you're like showing those parts of yourself to like your family or whatever, and it comes from concern and like love for you, but they'll get fucking afraid.
Yeah.
And they'll try to shut that down because they're worried about what that means, especially if they're like real sad or real angry and things that make people scared because they love you and they don't want to see you hurting. But it's really about their comfort and not about where you actually are, right? There were totally times I think when you were like in really dark places that I was like, oh, like I'm a little scared, you know, like I'm a little worried. But I was also recognizing that's my feeling. What I actually like know is that like, I believe in Sarah. I'm not going to like be like, oh, I'm afraid of what's going on. I'm just going to keep showing up in a way that's like, I know you can like do all of this, you know?
Totally. And I think another thing that's come from this and I think is like natural and good, I've like borrowed parts of your personality.
I think. 100%.
I'm like,
I
ooh, I think I'll take.
I was like, what would Sarah do here?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I like that. I think I'm gonna borrow some of that one. That's a good one.
I even like our languaging. I love seeing like how our languaging our vocabulary has like blended. But I totally like. I think about. I mean, honestly, especially when I'm feeling like really kicked up energy or like feeling that like pressure cooker stuff. I'm like, what would Sarah do here? Like, how can I like channel that?
The answer is always squat to Ashnico.
Squat to Ashnico or like furiously, violently clean my house.
That's true. Those are my things. Mine's always, my go-to with that kind of energy is always physical. Like even in Master Your Mindset, I remember there was like a thing where we were talking about different ways to like be present. And one of mine was like squeezing your like leg muscles as hard as you could. And you were like, just like, what the fuck?
That's so true. I'm like feeling my fingertips in space.
You're like imagining a beam of light shooting through my head,
the top of your head,
and I'm like,
I'm trying to give myself a cramp in my quad.
I'm like touching the walls, feeling the ground. Like it's we're so different. It's so funny.
But I think it's just like, I don't know. It just also goes back to like our friendship and how we're able to like I don't know.
I just want more people to experience these kinds of connections because it's just so much easier to get through life.
Right. And
that's what I want for everyone, really.
Yeah. Just like,
I want them to feel loved, like, as they are. That's like, because when you start getting to know, like, somebody on, like, a deeper level, because this friendship has influenced how I interact with my other friends, too. And, like, our friendships have gotten deeper because I just, like, this is the kind of connection I, like, would prefer to hang out in, you know? Because I don't really like hiding parts of myself anymore.
No, I'm
feeling
really
like there's, like,
at it.
I don't, yeah, you just don't do it. Yeah. And that's what I want for everyone. Like, that's really, I think, why we were motivated to come sit down here and start recording these podcasts, ultimately.
I think to, like, encourage everyone that is, like, it's, like, real and out there. And I think that this whole bit of, like, start by being, like, a really good friend to yourself, like a really fucking good friend, and accepting and loving yourself. And I really think that then you really start attracting people and connecting with people who are resonant with that, you know? And then even, like, this whole idea of, like, despite all of our differences, we don't let that be like, oh, I don't get that way of thinking and I'm going to let it be like this weird, it's
more like if you start approaching everything with, like, there's something to be learned from it rather than, like, this is right or wrong.
Yeah.
You're just going to, like, have so much, like, a better, like,
it's
more
just,
easygoing
opening
life.
Yeah. It's just, like, opening of yourself. And it's actually created a lot of, like, awe and, like, being able to be, like, kind of fucking amazed that, oh my God, you experience reality so much differently.
That's why when I read your Enneagram 4 description and it was like, this is how an Enneagram 4 thinks, I, like, literally looked at you and I was like, Emily, this is how you are, like, move through the world?
Yeah, it's intense.
You go, yeah, isn't it gross?
I did say that. I'm so embarrassed. Anytime, like, Enneagram
I was like, wait, so to just, like, your ideal day is, like, sitting on the couch, watching the rain, reading a book and drinking tea and just, like, crying about existentialism. And
yes,
you were like,
and standing on my front porch in my sweater, imagining what it'd be like to be, like, a wealthy widow. Like in a music video. Like, I don't know. It's just, like, it is, like, this romanticism of, like, the melancholy.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Enneagram, is getting, like, glimpses into each other's, like, psyche.
Just completely different, like,
that was the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, we do not see the world the same.
And when you can accept that, you have so much more room to, like, really genuinely, I think, connect with people.
Yeah.
When you can just accept that, like, tell me more about this, like, perspective that you have, because it's, like, blowing my mind.
Wild.
Yeah. And like, and how much by us doing that in our friendship, how much I have, like, grown and learned, and tools that I've added to my arsenal that I wouldn't have, like, come up with on my own. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's why we're doing this podcast. And, like,
and we're happy you're here.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, I mean, the whole point of this really, I think, is just what we did even with the sex talk, where it's like, we're here to learn, we're here to grow. I'm excited for feedback from people who listen to it, because I think that's going to, like, challenge us and make us, like, think differently and grow. And, like, I want to engage with people in this way. And, like, I don't know. It's one of my favorite tools for, like, self-exploration, is kind of putting myself out there and hearing what comes back from it.
Yes. I'm so excited for that feedback.
Yeah.
And I am aware that we didn't really, like, finish our, like, friendship story, but.
Oh, well. That can be for next time.
That can be for next time. So we'll pick up on
Friendship Part 2.
Friendship Part 2.
And this is where we tell each other we love each other.
I love you so much. And, like, every bit about you. And there's something really amazing about loving parts of you, especially parts of you that maybe you struggle to love, almost in the sense of, look, I can love this part of you. You sure as fuck can, like, learn to love it as well. Just learn by my example. Like, look at that.
It's interesting because, like, as we're sitting here and listening to you, the thing that's coming up for me is I'm like, I would have had a full body cringe hearing you say something like this, like, years ago.
Oh, yeah. Because I remember, like, saying things like that and seeing, like, your full body cringe.
I would be like,
gross.
I would be like, get that out of here.
I know.
And now it's like, now I'm, like, actually, like, able to receive it. And that just feels really good. It just is, like, a testament to how much I've, like, changed over the years and how much I've grown and become more myself and more comfortable in myself. And I just, like, fucking love you. You're like a magical gift unicorn. Cloud.
Is that my next tattoo?
Yes. She's in my phone as Emily Twilight Sparkle, which is a My Little Pony. Just to like, that's like what you are. You're just like a magical.
Barely on Earth.
Barely on Earth. We joke that like the icon or like something or like podcast thing is like you're like actually in the clouds and
floating.
I'm on Earth, grabbing you by the ankle, trying to yank you down, and you're trying to pull me up into the sky. And that is like what that is. It is what our it's friendship the image, is.
And
that's
it's
the
like
image.
I'm giving you this perspective from up here, and you're like, look how good it feels to have your feet on the fucking ground.
Yeah, I'm like, it's moss
and like eating
toes.
Food, like and I'm look at all you can see up here.
It's so true.
It's how we are. I love that.
I love you.
I love you.
We'll finish our friendship story next time. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.